Hello, welcome. Just want to take a moment and welcome you to the fourth of a series that we've talked about AI and leadership intelligence and the impact of AI on organizations. But before I get into the last session of this month, please give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you can hear me. We had some tech issues a couple of weeks ago, so I don't want to go down that path again. So just watching for a thumbs up from people. All right. Yay, excellent. So let me just now go and turn on my do not disturb so that we don't get disrupted in this at all. Great. Done. All right, so let's get started. Welcome from your different locations. It's going to be an exciting session today. Although this is the last of the series, it's not the finale by any means. Next month, we dive into the chapters from my book. So if you're interested in following along with additional content to support the book that we're launching next month, I hope, all going well. So you'll be able to add more value as you read the book and access the sessions over the coming weeks. So let me get started. All right, so we're talking today about disconnected teams. Was it by accident or by design? And how AI tools may be fragmenting your team culture. Okay, so the impact on organizations, I'm going to dive into quite a bit of that today. We have a full agenda, and so I make no apologies as usual. It's important for us to get into these things at enough detail. I digress. Okay. So, as I mentioned, this is the final session. We've talked about, AI and decision making. We've talked about AI and team dynamics and the performance review one. And now we need to talk about the last piece of that four-part series, and that is the culture, connection, cohesion, the impact of not just the remote workforce, and we see a lot of people now dealing with that, and actually AI is now the new challenge because we're figuring out that we need to get people back into the workplace to encourage the culture, the team dynamics, etc. And now we've introduced AI in a lot of different areas and all kinds of tools. And how is that impacting your organization? So, questions for you before we get started. Think about these three things, right? Or two things. Is your team more connected to the process than they are to each other? Do the tools enable or erode your team culture? That's what we're going to unpack today. And so obviously the final one, was it intentional or by accident? I think we can all say that it was by accident. We just took on a lot of stuff too quickly. We've gotten excited by those. So the impact on the culture and the team and the performance and all the things we've talked about this past series are really by accident, not by design. So now we're learning the lesson, we're just trying to figure out what to do with that. So the false promise of AI to connect people is really come down to, is it streamlining tasks? Yes. And if so, at what cost? And so today we look at that cost, that impact. Is it reducing efficiency, effectiveness, productivity? You don't know whether people are busy just for the sake of busyness. The data tells you one thing, but is it happening in reality? Could it be better? And if it were better, what would that impact be on the bottom line? What's the cost of that to your organization? Because when you lose your identity, your culture is your identity, your team is your identity, your brand, all of that. When that disappears, what do you have left? You've got AI tools just like everybody else. And so we want to address that and help you figure out what to do about that. And that's what I'll be covering today. So if you stay with me, I will get to the how do you deal with this? What should you start doing right now? Okay. So yes, we've seen Slack, Zoom, ClickUp, we use Infinity. There's all kinds of tools that we are embracing, and now we've got automation, email automation. AI can answer your emails for you. LinkedIn is launching AI tools. Gmail has done that. Microsoft, all of these things, what's that doing to your team dynamics? Okay. Whilst each of them provides a means of value, and we need to remember that, how is that impacting your team and your organization? Are they dispersed more? Do they talk less? Is it causing a misalignment? Are all these tools becoming just another tool, another noise? You know, we've got so much information coming at us all the time on all these platforms. It's becoming very noisy, and when that happens, people scan. They don't read anymore. They miss key points. If you're the type of person that writes an email that builds a story and the punchlines at the end, they miss that, right? We have to reverse the way we write emails, the way we communicate. Put your outcome at the beginning, then describe the reason, and then give it again at the end, you know, back to the sandwich approach in order to do that. So these tools, we need to be careful that we're not just adding more noise, that they're actually adding value. They might be functioning, but they are not effective in addressing your team culture, right? People update their dashboard, they report in, they give you the information, but are they really talking to each other? Do they read each other's posts, messages, or do they just block it out because there's just too much going on, too much noise happening? And if it's not relevant to them, it's no longer important. It is noise, right? So when people ask each other questions that are personal about them, that's different, right? When you're just throwing out your reports, your data, that's noise that is not relevant to those people. So they get ignored. Mm-hmm. So we end up with handling the how, the what in the business and the operations, but it's missing the motivation, the driver, the passion, you know, the things that we can observe. And that's really the collaboration shows up from how people engage with each other, not how they engage with the tools, right? You might as well have a blank face or a robot at the other end if you're just talking to a tool. So people are looking busy. The reports are saying, yes, they're doing things, they're busy, but the culture is the glue. Your brand is the glue. Are they aligned with your identity, or has that been diluted, eroded, and in some cases completely eliminated? I've looked into this many times over the decades, and my first one was probably 30 years ago, where I researched the growth um, um, reverse hook, if you like, that companies go into, and they peak and crash. And the reason for that was the culture, the dynamics, the alignment of the team. The identity gets eroded. And so that's a very critical element that you need to keep an eye on. You can't scale when that happens. You are limited by bottlenecks, and you become one of the bottlenecks because you're managing a lot of different people, tools, systems, and you then end up busier than you intended through that. Culture, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's the observable behavior within a group, an ethnic community. All these definitions come back to the one thing that we teach people, and it's the observable behavior. That's the only thing that matters. So when you talk about your culture, your brand, your identity, what is that? It's how people observe you and how they interpret that observation into your identity, your culture. It's not how you think of it, but it's how you are observed, right? You can have the best intention, come up with the greatest things. We've had to adapt a little bit with different trademarks, brands, in order to listen to what people are saying and adjust accordingly so that we can actually have the right brand out there that people observe it the same way that we intend it to be observed. Okay. So when that's missing, you are missing the context and the meaning. When people can't communicate, can't see each other, they can't engage with each other, the culture has no meaning, right? If they're just engaging with the tools, the culture has no meaning. They don't show up excited about the meaning of what they are doing, if you understand what I've gone with that. So the trust in each other, the trust in the organization, the direction of the company, we've done a lot of 360s over the years. We've done a lot of different tools. We've checked with people. And there were a lot of instances where we've asked organizations to see if the team understands the brand, the vision, the goal of the company. Are they aligned with it? Are you excited by it? And every time we fix that, something new comes along. So, COVID dispersed us. I've talked about that. Now AI and all these tools are having that same effect. Okay. So we need to be aware of the observable behavior, whether it's spoken, visual, whether it's around a coffee table. All of these things are really important. You can do a lot in those areas, and I can talk about that. So, we want to, we've lost the fun, the rituals that happen in an office, so how do you bring that back? That's part of the meaning, the joy, the excitement of being part of an organization. Okay, so AI deals with the routine, automates that, takes that away, but it can't do the discussion, the dynamics, the engagement, the disagreements even are important. They are the moments of reflection, as stated here, that elevate the thinking and the strategy of the whole team. So when you take that away, what have you taken away? You've taken away the future growth of the company, okay? Because AI can't do that for you. You can ask it a lot of questions, but again, it's limited to you and your questions. You want everybody to be participating in that. We stop seeing others beyond the role or the task that they are doing. That's again, basically, all we see are the numbers, the reported information. We might as well just be disconnected and just receive the data on a phone or by text somewhere. So behavior is more important than the tools. So remember that every time you put a tool in place, look at what behavior it's going to impact and what it's going to create. Culture, I've talked about that, is about that consistent, observable behavior that becomes your identity, your brand, your company's image, and and that's why we spend so much time training people into or indoctrinating them, whatever you want to do, brainwashing them. Used to be the negative phrase, but really it's by educating your team about your direction, your growth, your intended brand and identity, the more they will be representative of that. You can't, they tell you you can educate your AI profile about those things, but it still can't pick up the nuances that are critical for that to be an observable behavior, right? They will respond with that. It improves, but it's limited at the moment. Sorry, I just got an idea for another product. All right, so symptoms that you can watch for, people start operating in silos. I have a coach with a team, and there's family members working with the same team, and even family members are really using the tools and not really sitting down and having those conversations. So it extends even further than just the workplace. Updates happens, but the conversations don't. So the data, we're becoming more and more data centric and losing that identity. We've seen methodologies shift from total quality management in the 80s, 90s into the introduction of ISO 9000. We've seen Six Sigma, Lean. All of these shifts have moved more and more towards measuring data, process, timing between process and steps, sign-offs. All of this stuff is on the KPI side, but we haven't seen a lot happen on building the culture, the rituals, and so forth. So we need to bring that back. That was really critical in the 70s and 80s, and maybe even before that. So that's before my career stages. So lack of shared language, what do I mean by that? I mean, when there is a culture that's around a brand, the language becomes fairly consistent. Everybody's talking the same thing, So, for us, it's behavior intelligence, leadership intelligence. Everyone on the team has been exposed so much to my language, my teachings, etc., that it becomes a natural language. When somebody asks a question, it's instantaneously presented in the context of leadership intelligence or behavior intelligence. AccuMatch is the gateway to becoming intelligent about your behavior, the behavior of others, becoming a better leader. So it's become the foundation to being able to achieve all of these things. And the purpose of the book that, the first of the 2 volumes, is really to put that in people's hands and get people aware of the behaviors and what to do in those situations, right? Become a better coach, a better leader. When that language is missing, there are miscommunications, misinterpretations. The trust gets eroded when you don't have people talking and communicating the same brand. Everybody has a different language. There's really no dynamics, no connectivity, collaboration, all of those things that are important to the culture of the organization. Misaligned. Values become stated, but they are not visible in the behavior that we observe. So it's no point listing all your points of culture or your values of your company, your mission, your vision, if nobody is living them. Nobody's walking the talk, if you like. All right. And walking the talk, it's become a critical phrase because the walking part and the talking are observable behaviors. They are not mind reads. We don't say, think it and you'll become it. That was in the old days. Today, that's not enough. You've actually got to learn the right behavior. You've got to act out the right behavior. You got to actually show up that way. Right? So AI has been driving a wedge by automating the process, but it misses the accountability that happens when you have collaboration, disagreements, discussions, all of these important dynamics that we as human beings need to have in order for us to correct the AI, right? Think about that. If everybody has a different perspective on the goal, the identity of the company, they're not really connected to the identity, then everything that they do with the tools is also disconnected. All the tools then represent you in a disconnected way. So this level of abstract then becomes a big challenge. Okay, so culture will erode over time, and as I said, it's that reverse hook, if you like, where you can have great growth because you're involved and people are involved, but when you bring AI and disconnect people, your company could crash very quickly, lose its identity. So that erosion is important, and really, the things that the AI is not going to be able to do, although people keep saying it's being trained and so forth, it still doesn't do it, right? You can't look an AI in the face and observe their response to you, or their smile, their heart rate almost showing up, their excitement, all of these things, or the opposite, when empathy becomes important, and that leads to a lot of misunderstanding. When we don't have those cues back and forth, the visual cues, the audible cues, we become we leap to conclusions. We make assumptions about what's going on because we're missing that element. And that's what leads to a lot of misunderstandings. People don't engage, don't ask questions. I've talked about that so many times, guys. So the automation, you need to be careful about what it's doing to the connectivity of your team and you with your team. People begin performing and acting on the process, but really not engaged with each other, not caring about each other. Trust requires that presence, as I mentioned. They need to be able to observe your response, not just see your text or the common yes, understand. And obviously, because you don't have the cues and the engagement, you can't ask that question of which then triggers facial expressions, body language, tonality, hesitation, all kinds of things that you'll miss out on when you don't have those conversations. I know a lot of people struggle because we're getting busy. There's so much information and everybody's watching the clock, but you need to get in front of people, book a Zoom meeting if it's a dispersed organization working with remote people. Have it daily, have a daily huddle. We've talked about that, and I'll cover some of these things in just a moment. So, quick case study. Large organization, global team, implemented lots of tools. The numbers started to look good and improve, but no one felt heard, and people started leaving. Attrition went up. The cost of attrition, as we know, is very high. The disengagement leaders were misinterpreting what's going on as these people are not connected. What are they doing? All of these things that are missing when you don't have those regular communications. So when that is left out, even conflict is important. It needs to be. You need to have an air of transparency, an air of trust to be able to say whatever is on someone's mind. That disagreement is healthy for challenging growth and thinking and actually evolving organizations. If you have total disagreement, total agreement, you're flat. You are not growing. Okay, you need pain to solve those problems. You need that interaction to do that. So, what did we change? What happened in that organization? We reintroduced, weekly check-ins with team members. A cross-pollination, if you like. Having people talk to each other and having team meetings that are not just focused on the numbers, but healthy empathy, healthy discussions in the team, assigning times within the meeting to do that, or, taking people aside and just having a one-on-one meeting with a colleague, not even, management down. It doesn't have to be that way. It needs to be also laterally across the organization. So, shifting that whole thing of, the dashboard is important, but the dashboard is 40%. The team dynamics is a 60%. That actually drives those and improves them and exceeds expectation through what people are doing with the tools. Okay, so yes, the tools are important. They're becoming, they used to be maybe 10%. Now they're becoming a 40% of growth in most organizations. It doesn't matter what you do as an organization. It used to be service organizations needed to embrace tools better than anybody else. Now we see it in e-commerce, we see it in stores, we see it in all facets of business and corporation. Trust is the glue. Culture, is more than just a brand and identity. It can only exist through the behavior that builds the trust in the walk the talk. This is who we are. We're actually doing that. We're not just giving it lip service. All right. So brand, I've talked about that. The walk the talk, do it. Don't just say it, act on it. And now let me talk about some things that you can do to rebuild your rituals so that you can reignite, if that's what's appropriate for you, the culture to elevate the whole organization. So if you are removing yourself and become a shareholder, a stakeholder in the organization, you want to have the organization exceed your expectations, both financially, but for them to be recognized as a leading organization is more than just data, right? It's about the identity, the excitement of clients wanting to work with your team. That is your culture, all right? Even if the AI is in the middle, right? Who is identifying the challenges, improving the challenges of the AI so that it represents your brand properly and doesn't piss people off or leave them hanging, all the things that you wouldn't do. I guarantee you the AI will falter if you don't keep up with that. So your team are the people, AI can't do that. It's still not capable of doing that, right? Okay. There's a lot of work, obviously. You know how fast this is moving. Right. The shout outs, the celebrations, the recognition, the gratitude, all of these critical elements can't just be in text. They often need to be supported by a face-to-face, a reward, a recognition that's with a smile, a true appreciation, rather than just the numbers and congratulation or giving out bonuses, right? So the feedback loops, as human beings, I have this on my whiteboard behind the camera here all the time. We are human beings need feedback in order for the brain to constantly adjust and improve. There's positive feedback, there's negative feedback. We learn from both, we evolve from both, and that combination is important. So those feedback loops are important in every organization. And if it's missing and it's just text, then eventually it just ends up back in that bucket of noise. Okay, it gets ignored. So align your systems with the connection objective. The tools need to support, not replace, the conversation, the connectivity. So if you've had that before introducing the AI, make sure if you've lost that along the way, bring it back, put it back in place. Get people talking, get them involved, get them excited about the meaning of being in your organization. We're all struggling with that, but it's an important reminder that it needs to continue to happen. So please take heed of that. Trust building behavior is the critical foundation of all the tools that you are using. I hope I've said that enough times. If you just put tools and you forget about the people are the ones that are using the tools. If the tool was misimplemented or it's crap to start with, then it's just going to create a lot of disconnection, not just crap out, but the disconnectivity within your team, the misunderstandings, the missed expectations, all of those things are the things that you want to try and avoid by remembering that the behavior and the culture is the cohesion of your team. So build yourself, and I can give you one, but you want to try and do this. It's simple. All right. Take every week or every month at least do a spot check of where there are some fragmentations, where are things missing deadlines. These are all the flags that you need to pay attention to, and they are not always tool solutions. They also need to come back to elevating the team to have the team responsible, accountable for the improvement of the tools. Maintain a behavioral lens. Watch for those, I call them red flags, you call them whatever you want. But if you don't watch for those signs and pay attention and heed those warnings, you lose great people, you lose great clients. All of these factors will become a challenge. Yes, provide tools to support them, make them more effective, leverage the excitement and energy that your team can bring through those tools rather than be threatened by them. Okay. So, your behavior intelligence ritual builder will create the consistency, or the objective needs to create consistency in team interaction. So, put those cultural rituals in place, reinforce the alignment, interaction versus automation, bring the balance back. I've used 60-40 quite a lot, but even if it's 80-20, whatever the right balance is to ensure the excitement within your team that generates excitement in how they service your clients. Because when your clients are happy and excited and their expectations are exceeded regularly, guess what happens? Right? Scalability is so easy, it happens on its own. It's foundation. Patrick Lencioni, still a powerful tool. 5 dysfunctions of a team. The foundation is trust. Okay. Automation tools do not have any trust between them. When something gets upgraded and they break, they don't bat an eyelid, they don't care, they don't really figure out how to solve that on their own. You need to have your team be responsible for that. So, key takeaways, just to wrap up. AI tools are neutral. They don't have the compassion, the empathy, right? And the way you use them, we are really either going to cause a disconnect or, obviously impact your culture. And if you want to keep your identity and your culture intact, then make that the top priority. Disconnection is often unintentional. So as we implement these things, we need to be careful because the impact of it, is often you don't see it until it's happened, right? Oh yeah, you can guess. You don't have a crystal ball. You can't tell how people are going to respond to tools. You don't know how they're going to interact. You don't know what's going to break until you do it, you test it, and you see what went wrong, and actually take a initiative to look at that every week and fix it. Okay, so behavior intelligence is that very thing of, we talk about, and maybe I need to be careful with this, just a very quick point. Behavior intelligence in an organization isn't just the observable behavior of the people. It needs to be the behavior of the systems, the tools, and the impact it has on people, and also the people-to-people engagement. So there is an element of behavior intelligence that is about the processes and the tools and systems as well. Those do, when they do actions, an action is a behavior, whether it's a person or a system, an AI. Those are the observable behaviors that people experience when they engage with your AI or with your people. Right? They don't know often unless you're transparent about the AI responding, and I encourage you to do that. We're seeing a lot of organizations using AI for reach out and connection and even making calls, but they're not being transparent that that's an AI, and people get pissed off and they hang up. They don't want to talk to a robot, but when they know the robot, they're often impressed rather than annoyed. Okay, so that's something that you need to be aware of as well. Okay, wrapping up. So your next steps, it's just a 1, 2, 3. Develop your cohesion or brand or culture audit. Okay, experience. We used to do, what do they call it? It's a discovery process where you pretend you are a client and go through the experience of that. So you can hire people to do that so that you get an external perspective. Do an audit of how people experience working with you, right? Or with your tools. Do it within your team as well. Schedule those rituals. You can't have those discussions about what's wrong if you don't ever meet, right? Or if you talk for half an hour once a month, because everyone's so disconnected, and they show up to the meeting and they've got a foot out the door, they're ready to leave because they don't even want to be there, right? They're not excited about the meaning. It's gone, right? Reconnect your systems with your culture. Like I've discussed, they are both elements of behavior impacting your organization. Okay, so thank you. Be sure to reach out, join us. If you have any questions, I will put my info on the screen here as well, so you can reach out to me, and happy to help out. If you want to find out more about the coming events, do watch our page. Make sure you are on our list to get that information and be involved in your growth, right? That is it for me today. Thank you.